Hello students, welcome back to another introduction video. This week is a lot of seated poses, so we're going to be doing cat and cow, seated spinal twist, triangle pose, goddess pose, bridge pose with a lot of variations, seated butterfly, and head to knee pose. I am going to do the ones on the ground first, and then we'll do triangle and goddess last. Once again, please watch first before attempting. I recommend watching all the poses, then rewind and do them, but maybe you want to watch first, rewind and do that pose, whatever works for you. Make sure you warm up. I recommend 6 to 10 minutes of like dancing or any kind of Tai Chi, or do a couple of sun salutations before getting started. All right. First, two poses we're going to do is cat and cow. So we're going to come into a tabletop position first. So make sure your wrists are underneath your shoulders, your knees are hip width apart, and your back is straight. It should feel very nice and elongated. So to do cat, exhale, flex the spine, around the spine. This is spinal flexion. Then inhale, bringing the chin up, extending the back. This is back extension. With cat and cow, you can actually switch up the breathing. So sometimes I'll teach it where I'll have one set of breathing first and then switch it. Make sure you're really going full out in the pose. Imagine you're trying to get an extra inch length in your spine. And when you're done with cat and cow, come back to a flat back, because often in yoga there'll be other poses that you're going to transition from here. You can also do wagging the tail if that feels nice, or you could do circles. There's a lot of things you can do with it. It's really good for bringing more fluid, spinal fluid, into the spine, doing cat and cow. And as I mentioned, you're going from flexion to extension, which feels really nice, and you're waking up the whole torso. The next pose we are going to do is bridge pose. We're going to come onto our back. You want your heels to be close to the fingertips as much as possible, but for some people it might be a little bit farther. And for a lot of people, it does feel good to slightly turn the toes in. When you bring the pelvis up, you're going to exhale, tuck the pelvis towards you, inhale and bring the pelvis up, keeping the arms down on the mat, and on the release, exhale very slowly, one vertebrae at a time. That is a basic bridge pose. Make sure when you're in bridge, you are not looking to the side. You are looking up. This protects your cervical spine, which is your neck. So again, tucking the pelvis, engaging the core and lifting up. From here, there is a lot of fun things you can do. You can pulse. You can bring one leg up. You can march in place. There's this fun where you do the heels and then back, which gets this part of the body toned. You can bring one leg up and hook it over for a nice stretch. What are we working in bridge pose? We are engaging the glutes, the hamstrings, a little bit of the quads, the pelvis girdle muscles, the entire torso, the transversus abdominis, and releasing down. So bridge is an awesome overall strengthener. You're not doing much stretching unless you're doing this variation, which is a nice stretch for the hips. You can also, when you bring your leg up, you can do a point and flex. That is from Pilates. So you see this a lot in Pilates and also in physical therapy. When you're done, just relax your back, and if it feels nice, you can bring your legs in. To come out of any pose on the ground, you want to bring your knees in towards the chest, come over to the side, take a pause here, and bring yourself up. Next seated pose we are going to do is seated butterfly. Options here is, this is also known as Baddha Konasana. They can be closer together or farther apart. So depending on the diamond shape will change which part of your legs you're going to be stretching on the outside. But this pose mostly works on the inner thighs and the inner hips. To make sure that you're on your sit bones, just walk yourself on top of them. You can also use a wall to help you feel the length of your spine. And then when you feel that, you can come off the wall. You can also sit on a pillow and make sure your pelvis is tilting down, or a mat. If it's really tight, you can also put some blocks underneath here or some pillows. Make sure the blocks aren't pinching. It should feel pretty gentle. So rolling the shoulders back, lengthening the spine, and hinging forward. Exhale. This is one of those poses you can hold for a long time if you're doing a yin practice or if it's at the end of your practice. And using a pillow or something to help you hold your head so you're not straining your traps. You can even use your hands or fists or coming to your elbows. That might work as well. And when you're ready, you're going to come back up very slowly, and shaking out the legs always feels good. Yeah, so any kind of stretch, like this kind of stretch or this one, you're stretching your adductors. Alrighty. Next is seated spinal twist. There's a couple variations that you can do. I'm going to show you from easy to hardest, and I do this because maybe you want to do the easier version at the beginning of a sequence or at the beginning of a class or as a warm-up. So when I say easy, that doesn't necessarily mean better or worse. Okay, so basic seated spinal twist, you're just going to be in Sukhasana, one leg in front of the other, having both hands on the knees, lengthening the spine, rolling the shoulders back, and looking over one shoulder, then the other shoulder. You can take this a little bit farther, bringing one hand back and the opposite hand to the knee. Deeper stretch. And exhale, deeper stretch. I recommend trying all of these to see which one works for you. I'd say at level 2, you're going to have one leg straight. I'll go to the side. One leg straight. Make sure you're on your sit bones. Once again, you can use a pillow or roll up the mat if you need to. And then crossing the other leg. remember that it's always going to be the top leg is going to be the opposite arm. So my opposite arm is going to go across the leg, and it can be straight or bent like this. Straight's a little bit easier. Then you're going to use the same hand as the top leg behind you to straighten the back even more, kind of like a kickstand, and then twisting over. Exhale, release. Doing a counter stretch is really important when you're doing the level 2 or 3 versions. Go ahead, do the other side. So why do we do twists anyways? I'm always confused with myself. We do twists because it's really good at aiding digestion. Why is that? Well, when you twist your body like this, you're cutting off blood flow to the organs. Then when you untwist, fresh blood comes to the organs, and that is how it aids in digestion. You can even do a practice that has many twists in it if you're working on improving your digestion. I just wouldn't recommend more than 2 heavy twist sequences a week, just because it can be really intense. You're also strengthening and stretching you're always working your transverse abdominis, but your oblique muscles. Your obliques are your side abs, so when you're twisting, you're contracting, strengthening, and then the other side is stretching. And then finally, you're doing the seated twists with both legs bent. This may not be available for everyone, depending on how flexible your hips are, and don't worry if you can't do it. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. So it will be the same thing, so both legs are bent, once again, opposite arm to top leg. And then gentle counter twist, and then doing the other side. Okay. Next seated pose is head to knee pose. We'll do a side view once again. So you're gonna have one leg bent, one leg straight. The bent leg, the foot is touching the inner thigh. Make sure your hips are underneath you once again, or use a pillow or roll up a mat. Gluing the shoulders back. Exhale, engage the core, lengthen up, and hinge forward. Your hands can touch the mat, your thighs, maybe some blocks, or the foot. If they do touch the foot, you can always give yourself a little nice massage here, or even stretch the calf even more by gently pressing on the foot. And you're tucking the chin. You can hold this pose for quite a long time. And as you exhale each time, you can get closer and closer to the knee. This is another bilateral pose, so we recommend doing on both sides. The monolateral pose of that would be staff pose with both feet forward. Triangle and goddess. Yes, my 2 favorites. All right, we're gonna do goddess first. So you're gonna come into horse stance or second position. Horse stance is for martial arts and second position is from dance. So it's kind of like in between. It's slightly wider than second position. Bending the knees. And you're gonna open the arms and glue the shoulder backs, squeezing the rhomboids and the traps, bringing your hands wide like jazz hands, which is engaging the digitorum muscles in your forearms. Ah, yeah. So this is goddess. But often how you'll see it done is maybe you'll hold it for a long time here, or you'll straighten the arms and bend down. I like to straighten up, come onto the balls of my feet, and then stay in the balls of my feet, which is from dance. So however works for you. And you can think of your favorite goddess like Kali and go, sticking the tongue out, looking up, be your best goddess you can be. Woo! Have fun with it. So we are strengthening quads. Oh yeah, engaging the core, transversus abdominis, the glutes, squeezing those shoulder backs, working the traps, the rhomboids. It is a killer. And the digitory muscles if you're really sending energy through those fingertips. Triangle pose, you can get into it from multiple locations. Often you'll be in warrior two though, first, and then you'll come into triangle. That's usually how you'll get into it. Send this hip up, teeter-totter over, and I am in triangle pose. For some people, because I have a super wide stance in warrior two, because I've been doing yoga since I was like 16 years old, I will bring that foot back in so it's closer, and then teeter-totter over. The goal of triangle is not, oh look, I can get my hand down on the ground, which I can, great. But it's this this stretch and opening here in the upper hip. We're getting into all these connecting muscles into the hip, and you should feel it also in the back. It's an amazing hip opener. You also want to make sure that the shoulder is directly in the same line as your head and your chest. So it's common to see people sending their arm way back this way or way forward this way, closing the chest. So you really want to open the chest. It can help to maybe have the opposite hand on your shin, or if you have a block, you can use the block to help you. Once again, it's about the opening and stretching of the hip, not about getting your hand all the way to the ground. You can either look up towards the hand, or you can look down towards the ground. Make sure the back foot is perpendicular to the front foot. So I'm going to show the twisted version. Woohoo! It's much harder and it's a lot of fun. So make sure you do triangle on both sides. So for twisted triangle, what you are going to do is the same thing, tipping over. Oh, my back just cracked. I love this one. But instead of coming into a regular triangle as we are now, you're gonna fold over, walk that hand, either it can be on the ground next to the foot, in front of the foot, or most challenging, over the foot. Then you're twisting the other way. Twisted triangle. As like in pyramid pose, folding over, and then coming into a twist.